The question is that the motion be agreed to. The Honourable Ruth Dyson.
Point of order, Mr Speaker.
Point of order, the Honourable Ruth Dyson.
I seek leave to correct a vote cast in the Telecommunications Interception Capability and Security Bill.
Yes, leave is sought. What is the correction?
I wish to correct the vote to change it to 33 in opposition.
From 31 to 33 in opposition. Leave is sought for that purpose. Is there any objection? There is no objection. The Honourable Trevor Mallard.
I think there are some things that need to be placed clearly on the record. The first is that Labour in government will regulate to prevent gambling harm. 2, we will not compensate for the regulatory functions of government. If the convention centre is half built, no one is going to go around and rip up the foundations, but this deal is gold-plated and we will not be bound by it. Mr Speaker, we will be supporting the Greens' amendments to the bill, and gambling harm is an issue right across the society and it affects many household budgets. Mr Speaker, I want to put a few things on the record from the Select Committee process. First of all, the Labour Party members asked that Treasury, Internal Affairs and Ministry of Health officials advise the committee so that all members could be better informed. Government members, led by Jonathan Young, blocked that advice coming directly to the committee. What that meant was that we did not get the level and the quality of advice that a committee should have, and instead, Mr Speaker, and I want to say that the officials who I'm now going to criticise worked for me, at least the lead one did, and he's a wonderful chap. But at the committee, the advice we were getting was from people who had been involved in the negotiations themselves, who felt, I think, owned by the negotiations and a sense of ownership of the deal. And as a result of that, the advice that the Select Committee got from Moby was defensive and not informative. And, Mr Speaker, I regret that, because if the government had nothing to hide, they would have allowed full, free and frank advice from the full gambit of officials, rather than channelling it through people who had a personal as well as a departmental commitment to this legislation. We are further concerned at the warning given to organisations providing health services, people who work with gambling addicts on contract to the Ministry of Health, that the people who did that very work were not allowed to come to the committee and give evidence. Mr Speaker, that was wrong, and I want to thank the Salvation Army for having the bravery to come to the committee and to make that clear on behalf of themselves and the other organisations that that was the instructions that they were under from this government. Mr Speaker, it comes so close to being a breach of privilege, Mr Speaker, but the thing that I do know, and it's probably not, but the thing that I do know, it is morally wrong to stop the people who know the most about gambling harm giving the evidence, giving their testimony to the committee so that we could understand better. Mr Speaker, notwithstanding that, there was some advice that we received directly and indirectly that really summed the situation up. The Deputy Auditor General said, quote, "We do not consider that the evaluation process was transparent or even-handed." I'm going to repeat that. We do not consider that the evaluation process was transparent or even-handed. Mr Speaker, this deal went to Sky City on a rort arranged at a dinner by the Prime Minister. He's transferring a massive amount of wealth to the private shareholders of Sky City from the People who are addicted to gaming machines in order to have something which he can turn the sod on next year in election year. Mr. Speaker, I want to agree with the Treasury. Now, I sometimes agree with the Treasury more than my colleagues like, but generally don't. But on this one, they hit the nail on the head. They expressed, quote, strong concerns that private benefits to Sky City will exceed public benefits to New Zealanders. That is the rort that I am talking about. Treasury in their advice to their minister. And I say to Bill English, why doesn't he stand up for the things that he believes in? He knows that gambling is wrong at this level. He knows this deal is a rort. He knows it in his heart, and he knows it from the official advice that he's got. Why doesn't he take a principled stand and say, because we all know there is a conscience vote on this issue, I'm asking Bill English to look at the advice that he's received, to understand it, and to vote according to his conscience on this bill. Mr. Speaker, there's a growing consensus that the ministers undervalued the worth of the additional pokie machines, but more importantly, the value to Sky City of the 27-year, other than by legislation, unchallengeable extension to their exclusive licence in Auckland. These are the people who are providing an extension to the monopoly that sits around casino gambling in Auckland. The Australian examples indicate that that sort of arrangement on its own is worth hundreds of millions of dollars. And in Australia, Sky are prepared to pay it, but here it was hardly counted in the government's evaluation of the worth of this deal. Mr. Speaker, we also note the report which was prized out of the minister who preceded me in this debate, which indicated because of the diversion of investment, there will only be a net 18 jobs created by this project. 18. He said thousands, and it might be that thousands of people are involved in the building of it. But net 18 is the advice that he asked for and he got and he tried to hide. And that is just typical of the arrangements around this legislation. It is blow it up as wonderful in public, and if there's any advice that does not support John Key's view, the sacrifice of the gamblers to his sod turning, if any advice doesn't agree with John Key, then let's keep it hidden away. And we're going to see many more examples of this. Mr. Speaker, there's no doubt, notwithstanding what the Minister said, that these tables are the most used and are the worst form of gambling. The machines are used much more heavily, 8 to 10 times as much as other machines are used around the country. And therefore any one of these machines is much worse than those that are being taken out under the sinking lid policy, which has been praised so much by members opposite. Mr. Speaker, this bill will result in more of the most harmful gambling. It will result in families losing significant assets, including their houses. It will result in family breakdowns. It will result in suicides. It will result in murder. Mr. Speaker, we have seen the evidence of all of that already around the activities of Sky City. We have seen that on a repeated basis. And what we have opposite is a government where not one of them, Pesata Sam Lotuinga, I challenge you to use your conscience. Jonathan Young, who used to be a person of principle, who used to preach anti-gambling. And what do we have here? We have someone who is promoting more gambling. I say to Jonathan Young, use your conscience. stand up for what you used to believe in and stop being a toady to the Prime Minister on an approach trying to get a cabinet position which we all know he will never get.
I call Jonathan Young.
Mr Speaker, can I please